Tennessee special teams, well, won them a game against Alabama, which is the biggest win since I would say 1998 Florida. If that kick doesn't go through, who knows what happens in overtime. But I ask you, Caleb, Tennessee's special teams will be a positive, a wash, or a negative for the Vols this year? Because I think it's going to be immensely positive. Are you not willing to go there?
I'm going to say, as of right now, I have to say it's a negative. And I'm going to tell you guys why. I covered Mike Eberle over the weekend in his press conferences, and he gave two revealing things. Talking about the punt game, he said this is going to be the best unit we've had, period. I believe him. Jackson Ross is the best punter in the nation. He even said they actually developed a whole system around Jackson Ross's style of punting, and their punt coverage is great. I'm sorry.
He's a rugby punt. He's like a rugby punter who can punt with your leg. So yes, he's definitely way different than I ever thought I would saw. He's a weapon, as Philip Fulmer used to call it. Dustin Cole.
He is a weapon. It's a huge weapon in this. Here's the issue. Tennessee's not going to need their punt game that much this year. They're just not going to need it. It's not going to be a factor. So as good as he is, it's like maximal what you can do. That's 10% of what they need, because analytically data shows us the second most valuable player on a team that impacts a game behind the quarterback, Dave, is the place kicker. I don't know if you know that stat. It's shown in the NFL. The second most valuable player is the place kicker, and Tennessee doesn't have a place kicker yet. And I'm going based on what I've heard from Mike Eberle. I'm not saying this is my judgment. I haven't seen them or anything like that, but they haven't named a starter yet. And here's a red flag on this. Kicking is not like quarterback. You don't do gamesmanship for a kicker, guys. You don't say, I don't want this team to know that I'm going to start this kicker, so I want to keep them on their heels, so they got to prepare for it. Like, you don't do that for kickers, okay? I think it's stupid to do it for quarterbacks, honestly, but you definitely don't do it for kickers. The fact that they haven't named a starter yet is alarming, because I feel like you want to name a starting kicker early, Dave, because you want them to work with the first team so they can get their confidence up, to get their focus on getting their mentality right and things like that. And the fact that we're halfway through fall camp and they haven't done it tells me they have concerns about finding their kicker. That's the most important aspect of special teams, and they still don't have it yet.
Well, now, in all fairness, they're not going to release a starting lineup till next week. So are you talking about Eberle saying that
he's acknowledging there's just open competition right now?
Yeah, I think it is a little late in camp to be having an open competition at kicker. So I think that's a concern. I think Josh Turbeville has the most talent. I think he can perhaps get in his head a little bit and try too hard. He's a local guy, and I can't imagine the pressure going and handling kickoffs. A couple went out of bounds last year. I think that's a real concern. But if that works out, now he also had a little bit of a muscle pull in his leg, so he didn't get quite as much done in the offseason. And you have to wonder about somebody coming along and taking his job. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's still going to be Turbeville, because I don't know of a candidate, a place kicker that is as talented as him. But I will tell you this, the next few days are big for Josh Turbeville if he wants to be Tennessee's starting kicker.
Yeah, and we know this. A lot of times they'll go with kickers. It's not like Ty goes to the veteran. Ty is going to go to the one that you think is the most consistent a lot of times because of the way the game works. If I remember, Dave, the last time I remember a kicking battle like this, you covered it. Do you remember Philip Newman versus James Wilhoit in 2003?
Yes.
And Wilhoit won the job as a freshman. And I think there was concern about the issue. But that's just because I think Philip Newman was very limited in how good of a kicker he could be, wasn't he, Philip Newman?
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, James Wilhoit was a fantastic kicker. If not for Jeff Hall being a legend, we would be talking about him as maybe Tennessee's best kicker of all time, right?
I mean, you got to go back to, but there's people like Fuad Reviz of the 80s and people like that were like great. But you're right, that's up there. And this is the point. You're right. Place kicking makes the difference. Jeff Hall nails a 41-yard field goal against Florida. Collins Cooper misses his. I mean, kicking is huge. Ask the Colts and the Patriots about kicking. The Patriots had Adam Vinatieri their first 4 years with Tom Brady and won 3 Super Bowls because of that. The Colts had the best kicker in football who was mentally weak in Mike Vanderjagt. So whenever a kick mattered, he missed it. And that cost him maybe 2 Super Bowls in the early 2000s. Kicking is that crucial. And then what do the Colts do? They go and get Adam Vinatieri and they go win the Super Bowl.
No, fair. All right. Let me ask you this. As far as Tennessee and punt return, there have been a bunch of guys out there, punt returner guys. Anybody that thinks they really know who's going to return punts for Tennessee is guessing, because they've run a lot of guys out there. I mean, Brew McCoy's been catching punts. He's not going to return punts. Okay. So I would think at punt and kick returner that Tennessee, because rising waters lift all boats, is more athletic at that position and should have more big plays. But you did have a guy named D recently. So what do you think of the return game? Let's start on punt and then we'll go to kickoff.
D who? Sorry. Yep. You guys could look that up. I'm not going to finish that joke. But I think if Tennessee's smart, they're going to go with Boo Carter or Squirrel White as their returner.
I think it's Squirrel, because you're asking Boo Carter to be a starter, I believe, on defense. So you're think right. Now here's what could have happened with Boo Carter. Boo Carter could have come along and he's just going to be a contributor and a second team guy. So you say, you got to get him on the field. How about punt returner? But as it turns out, he's been able to grasp things and he's been mature enough, and he's definitely athletically gifted enough. He should be very good at that. Kick returner. Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I was younger, I used to think you put your defensive backs like as your primary punt returners, but you're right. You work so much harder playing in the secondary than you do at wide receiver. But I just wanted to point out, you brought up Squirrel White. Dave, we got to start talking about this out loud. If Squirrel White has we both agree he could have a Jalen Hyatt type year, depending on how the coverages are, right?
Yes.
What if he also is an All-American caliber punt returner? Could he go to New York as a non-quarterback?
No.
Really? I mean, you don't think so?
No. Sounds good, but it's
like,
not.
What if he has Jalen Hyatt's receiving numbers, but he also has like 3 punt return touchdowns?
Well, then yes. I mean, Jalen Hyatt was the Bolitnikoff Award winner. I'm curious, can you look this up and see where he ranked on the Heisman voting that year? Surely he got some votes, I would think. Let's ask you on the message board. So you, of your 4, there are 4 units in special teams. I feel good about coverages on both kickoff and punt. I feel good about punt, even though you don't think they're going to do it quite as often. But the most important one, actually, there would be 6. There'd be 6 aspects of special teams. I feel okay about kick return. Again, I think the most important is field goal return or field goal kicking, right? I mean, that's the
field goal kicking. Field goal kicking and kickoffs, because Tennessee's going to kick off more than they punt this year. And here's the thing. Field position does, for this defense, field position does matter, because the way Tim Banks runs the defense is he wants to make the offense work their way down the field to score. If you spot on the ball like past the 40, they're not having to work their way down the field to score.
Very true.